Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're taking a look at a few cards that are trending on the market with the upcoming release of Photon Hypernova. I did want to do a recap of other cards from themes that are getting support in the next set to recap the things that we may have talked about previously, but I think we're going to hold off on that until next week once we get the rest of the reveals from Photon Hypernova. So instead for today, we're going to take a look at a few other notable pieces that we haven't taken a look at yet that may have fallen under the radar. Let's get started. Kicking things off here, I think that one of the most notable cards we've seen trending over the last few days is Nimble Sunfish. This card is a level 2 fish monster from the Nimble theme, though you're probably more familiar with Nimble Angler and Nimble Beaver. Sunfish has a bit more of a situational effect, where if it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can dump a fish monster from your deck to the graveyard, then special summon another Nimble Sunfish from your deck. So obviously, if this effect were to resolve, then that would be great to see, but having the requirement of being destroyed by battle might just be a bit too specific. It means that if your opponent does anything else to get rid of this card, you don't get to proc the Sunfish's effect, and it becomes just another dead card. I'm sure that you could try to do something going second, where you run Sunfish into an opponent's monster, but it seems like that would be situational at best. Anyways, the reason that this card is popping up is because of Joshua Schmidt, a very high profile player, and he was apparently testing this card out in his Sprite build, so a bunch of players jumped on it and just assumed that the card was going to be good. Furthermore, Nimble Sunfish only has one printing ever as a super rare from the Shining Darkness, a relatively old set, so the card is actually extremely difficult to find. At the moment, a single copy of this card is going to cost you $25 on TCG Player, which is obviously ridiculous for such a situational, not so great card. I think that the only real situation where I could see Nimble Sunfish maybe being useful is if you find yourself running out of angler targets and you need something else to summon, but honestly, I think that when we look back at this card in just a couple of weeks, no one will even be considering it for their deck list because there's just so many other better cards you could be running, and this card's price is going to be much cheaper. If you happen to have a few of these lying around, now is a great time to take advantage of this hype and offload them while they're at this crazy price point. Next up, Branded Opening is a key card from one of the more popular themes in the game that is being looked at a lot right now. For a while there, it seemed like absolutely everyone was on Branded Despia, but then out of nowhere, it kind of completely fell off as everyone turned to either Sprites or Tearlament. This happened without Branded Despia really getting hit on the ban list at all. The deck just kind of got power crept a bit, but it still remains a popular deck with a lot of players, especially at the local level. The Fallen of Albaz lore is going to be continuing through the next couple of core sets, those being Photon Hypernova and Cyberstorm Access, with each set bringing a new fusion monster into the lore and a new tool for the deck to use. Branded Opening is of course one of the deck's most important starters, getting you access to Aluber who can search for Branded Fusion, and that kind of gets the ball rolling with your fusion summoning. Now, if you guys remember, Branded Opening used to only have one printing as a super rare, and I think that for a while that card was like $20 to $25. Now, however, the card has gotten a secret rare reprint in the 2022 Megatins, which made it much more accessible to the player base. For a little while there, when Branded Despia was basically getting zero attention, either copy of Branded Opening had fallen down to $1 or $2, not that bad at all. However, now that a lot of people are turning back to it and expecting that it might be really strong after the next ban list, either copy of Branded Opening is going to cost you about $5 to $6 each. Not too bad of a price point. If you can still get the set for around $12, I'd say that's pretty good. If you opened a bunch of the 2022 Megatins though, you'll definitely want to check for these in your holo bulk, since they are worth much more than they were back when the set first dropped. The next card we're taking a look at is Shinonome the Valence Priestess. So I remember when Tactical Masters first dropped, Valence just seemed like the most confusing archetype, and they also seemed like the worst archetype to come from the set, with Labyrinth and Runic just being so much more fundamentally strong. This has turned out to be mostly true, as Labyrinth is currently a top tier deck over in the OCG, while Runic has seen a lot of competitive success as an engine alongside various other themes. Now actually, it turns out that Valence has started to catch some people's attention, as there have been a couple of tops recently with the Valence deck. I believe that both of them were some sort of FTK build rather than a combo variant. Shinonome is one of the more important cards from the deck. As a scale, it has the standard Valence effect where it can special summon itself out onto the field for free, but it's also a double searcher, searching for a Valence spell when it's summoned, and then searching for a Valence monster if it moves to an adjacent monster zone. Regardless of what build you're running, Shinonome is definitely going to be a 3-of in your Valence deck. This card hasn't been out for very long, but we've seen a very notable spike in the card's price, specifically for the collector's rare version. I remember this card being down at around $20. I had the opportunity to pick one up for 20 Canadian. I just didn't want to get it because it didn't seem that worth it. But now, however, the collector's rares are all the way up at $48 lowest on TCG Player, with several sold listings at that price. And then for the Ultras, there hasn't been too much movement since the card has basically always been really cheap, but it still remains a $2 to $3 card. I don't think that Valence are going to take over the format anytime soon, even if we do get a big ban list, but I don't know, maybe Electromite will come off the list and Valence will be the best Pendulum deck available, who knows? I think that the safe play here is to just grab a set of the Ultras while they're still only a couple of bucks, but stay away from the collector's rares and leave those for the players that are really dedicated to the theme. Up next, Triple Tactics Talent is a card that feels a little bit polarizing. Throughout this card's lifetime, the amount of play that this card sees always fluctuates. Sometimes one player will want to run 3 copies of it in the main deck, others want to just side 2 copies, while at the same time some players don't want to play any at all. What you can't deny is that if you actually get to resolve talents, you're usually in a much better position, having either drawn 2 cards, taken an opponent's monster, or getting to see your opponent's entire hand and putting a card back. Now, it seems that a lot of players are going to be looking at playing Triple Tactics Talent because of a new card coming out in Photon Hypernova called Triple Tactic Tasking. It basically has the same condition to activate as Talents, but it searches for any normal spell or trap from your deck, and either sets it to your field if your opponent doesn't control a monster where you can't activate it that turn, or it adds it to your hand and you can activate it if your opponent does control a monster. This includes searching for talents, so basically Tasking is now making Talent a searchable card, and even the players that didn't want to run Talents at all are probably now going to be running at least 1 copy since it's now searchable. With this card, although it has received quite a few printings, it hasn't quite yet gotten a reprint that makes it like a budget card. For instance, we got the Ash Blossom reprints in the Salamangreat Structure deck, Dual Devastator, and the 2022 Megatins, or like how we're getting evenly matched in the upcoming Trap Trick Structure deck. For Talents, it has a couple of ultra rare printings as the budget versions, those coming from Magnificent Mavens or one of the Megatins, and although those were down at around $10 after Mavens came out, we've seen that card steadily climb back up to where it's now a $15 card. For the original Secret Rares, those are around $48 to $50, where they've been for quite a while. And then we're not going to pay too much attention to the Starlight or the Pharaoh's Rares, since most of your average players probably aren't going to be going after them anyways. Overall, I do think that it's reasonable to get at least a set of this card, since it is a staple that is going to see an uptick in play soon. You're probably going to be better off owning a set of this card rather than not having any at all, or just owning 1 or 2. Alright, now this is a card I think we talked about before, but maybe not for a little while. It's Gishki Abyss. This is a pretty old card for the Gishki archetype. It's basically the deck Stratos, allowing you to search for a Gishki monster on summon. Also, just like Stratos, Gishki Abyss isn't a once per turn effect, which means that if you can summon it multiple times, you can also proc its effect to search multiple times as well. The other important thing to note is that Gishki Abyss is a level 2 monster, so you can actually abuse this card with the Sprite cards as well. If you have this on the field, you can special summon Sprite monsters out of your hand, and if you revive this card with Sprite Elf, that will proc the effect of Abyss and let you search again. Now going into Photon Hypernova, Gishki Sprite isn't going to be the best deck of the format by any means, but it looks like a really fun deck and a lot of players are excited to try it out, and by all means it could be a top tier deck after the next ban list. Because of that, people are scrambling to find their copies of Gishki Abyss, along with other key Gishki cards for the deck. However, Gishki Abyss only has 2 printings, one from a Hidden Arsenal set, and the other as a dual terminal printing. The DT version is going to cost you about $30 each, while the supers are up at around $20. These cards were only at $10 before, so obviously this is a crazy price tag for an old card like this that used to be only $1 or $2, and it really speaks to how much the archetype is being hyped up right now. Now, of course, I think that the expectation is that Abyss, along with the ritual spells, should be reprinted fairly soon to prevent crazy price spikes like these from staying around for too long. However, these aren't necessarily guaranteed to happen, right? So theoretically, we could see no Gishki reprints until the end of the year, and people would just have to kind of accept the fact that these cards are so ridiculously expensive. For now, we're probably going to have to cross our fingers and hope that it's either in an OTS tournament pack or in Maze of Memories, which comes out in March, because if it's not in one of those sets, then a lot of players are going to be waiting a long time to be able to play this revitalized theme. The next card we're going to take a look at here is Plunder Patrol Ship Lease. I think that historically the Plunder Patrol archetype has been good, but never great. They take the occasional top here and there, but they've never been a consistently well-performing deck. However, the Plunder Patrol deck gets a really significant boost in Photon Hypernova with the release of Yord, a Synchro Pendulum Scale monster. It's an Earth monster, so it can be cheated out fairly easily, and if your opponent special summons a monster, you can search for a Plunder Patrol card from your deck, and then also potentially special summon a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck as well. It also puts itself into the scale by adding a Plunder Patrol card from your graveyard back to your hand, and then while it's in the scale, you can summon tokens of any attribute you want to either player's side of the field, letting you cheat out more monsters. Overall, this is a really good boost for the deck, and I know that those players that are big on the Plunder Patrol theme are really excited to see this new card. Because of this, we have seen Lease start to go up gradually. It was only a couple of dollars for the secret rare version after the card got a ultra rare reprint in Ghost from the Past 2, but it has steadily gone up over time, and now it's sitting at the $6 to $7 mark for a single copy. Naturally, the original printings of cards usually will go up more over time, as is the case with this card, but we also need to remember that the original secret rare printing was from Eternity Code, a set that was kind of hard to find because everyone was chasing for Access Code Talker. This is just a small piece that's worth noting in case you happen to have a secret rare copy of Lease flying around that you want to offload, or in case you're interested in the theme and might want to consider picking up all of the cards that were reprinted and are now dirt cheap. And finally, the last card we're going to talk about for today is Blackwing Armor Master. So no, we're not talking about in terms of today's game. I think that Armor Master would be pretty underwhelming. However, I want to mention this card because of Edison format, which is an old format that has gotten extremely popular with a lot of players recently. Now, as much as I enjoy playing Edison, I'm not a great Edison player and I don't pay too much attention to the format. However, one of my friends at Locals this weekend told me that Blackwings are basically the most dominant deck running around in Edison tournaments right now. Because of the popularity of both the archetype and the format, people are now scrambling to pick up the cards. Fortunately, a lot of cards such as Bora, Sirocco, and Vayu were reprinted in Battles of Legend Crystal Revenge. In particular, Vayu was getting extremely expensive before its reprint. Now, however, there are still cards that people need to go and pick up, and Armor Master is one that has gotten quite expensive. Now, despite having multiple reprints, including a couple of gold rare versions, all copies of the card are quite expensive. The ultimate rares are obviously crazy at like $90 each. The secrets from Legendary Collection 5Ds are around $30, and then all of the other lower rarities, such as the golds, ultra, and super rare, are around $20 to $25 per copy. This is quite a bit, especially considering how many reprints the card has gotten in its lifetime, but you have to remember that aside from the Starlight Rare version, its last printing was in 2014, which was almost a full decade ago. A lot of players need 2 copies of this card to run in their Edison extra deck, so the demand is quite high. My hope is definitely that we get this card reprinted as a common in the next OTS tournament pack, but for now, just in case you were wanting to jump into Edison, or you were looking for old cards to offload, Armor Masters are worth a solid chunk each, and they're something that a lot of players are now looking for. Alright guys, that is all we have for today. I think we have a couple more Photon Hypernova reveals, and then you guys get to see the boxes being opened at the end of this week, which should reveal a bunch of different rarities and cards. Photon Hypernova does look like a really cool set. I'm excited to see how it will impact the game, because we definitely do need things to be shaken up just a little bit. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's Market Watch episode, please make sure that you let me know by slamming that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today, and let me know what other cards are currently trending on the market. And if you haven't already, do make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button as well. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.